Very good. No sweat?
No sweat.
Hershey. Oh, okay.
I used to live in Delaware.
And so we got right, what did I just tell about the debate? Did I mention the seconds?
No.
So, wait, who, that's a debate. Who's dueling? Yeah, Byrd Hamilton. Who's the sitting vice president? Byrd. And Hamilton's a former Secretary of Treasury. Many ways, the kind of the founder of our financial system. And so, as this picture shows right here, you can see the second. So when they went there, the whole thing was about plausible deniability. Went to this island and wasn't sure what state it was in, so the laws wouldn't apply. When they went there, all the people who wrote them out were told, you see nothing, right? I see nothing. Remember, what did I tell you about a trial? If you're facing hard time and got to go to trial, you don't need to be found innocent. You don't need to be innocent. What do you need? Yeah, give them an excuse to find you not guilty. Give them some reason. Who's facing hard time? Yeah, a few of you, I know, yeah. Yeah, on bail right now. Yeah, we know. Yeah. We heard what you did. By the way, has anyone ever walked up to you and said, I heard what you did, and then walked away? Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to really make someone sweat. It's really good when someone in authority does that. I've heard you. I know. We're allowed. All right. So the seconds are all there, and this is all to give an excuse to acquit them in case it goes to trial. And so let's say we're talking Hamilton right here. This is Hamilton. His second is standing right next to him. Oh, I should add, a lot of times they just go there. They would go to the spot where the duel is and say, gimme. And say, gimme. And then say, I was here, I didn't run away, our honor's been preserved, we're not going to shoot each other. Well, let's say they go to the next step, and they actually carry it out. And so Hamilton is standing here. Here's Hamilton. His second will be next to him, staring at Byrd. And so he can't see Hamilton. So if something happens and they go to court, he can say, I have no idea what Hamilton was doing, but Byrd had a gun. So they can imply self-defense, even though everybody knows it's a duel, just have something in there to imply. And now the sun's coming out. And vice versa. In the middle, this is a handkerchief, and that would be pretty common. It'd be the judge. He'd be doing the same thing. I was looking forward. I had no idea these two guys showed up with guns. All to get plausible deniability. And if you've seen in the movies and they go back to back and like take 10 steps and shoot, no. They would pace off 20 steps, sometimes closer, sometimes 10, which makes it even more scary, I think. But they would pace off 20 steps. And remember, the dueling pistols with a hair trigger could easily make that distance and be accurate. Hamilton had these pistols. And so they marked out 20 steps. And if they're going to keep going to the next step, then the judge has a handkerchief and he drops it. And when it hits the ground, that's when you fight. Now, this would be also common too. You get there, we go to the next step. I didn't run away, but we shoot in the air, shoot in the ground. Honor's been saved. Well, Hamilton had the pistol here, and you got to stand sideways. Obviously, to make it, you don't want to go hit me. But you can't wear a cloak. That would be seen as dishonorable because it hides these contours of your body. So this is a little bit inaccurate, but like this one is, you wouldn't wear a long coat either. But Hamilton was standing here, the handkerchief hit, and they both stared at each other for a few seconds. Hamilton pulled the pistol and went like this, and right about here, fired. Now, we don't know. He would claim later, but of course he would, that he was firing in the air. But was he firing in the air, or did the hair trigger hit? He was actually going to shoot him. Byrd claimed he could feel the bullet go by. Now this was at a time when, and this is black powder. The musket ball moves so slow, you could hear it whistle by you, and you could almost see it. It was like a, now you're leaving again for a picture. What club is this? I'm not sure. And so, we don't know what he's doing, but Bert, you can almost see the bullet. They talk about the Civil War, you can see it go by. That's one of the reasons why the wounds would be so horrible, because when they would hit, it would just explode the bones. That's a good image for you, isn't it? Well, Burr claimed he heard the bullet, and Burr stood here. He did not fire in air. He took aim very carefully, which had to be a fun feeling for Hamilton. Okay. Fired. Hit Hamilton right here. Remember, standing sideways. Ripped apart 5 ribs. Destroyed, blew up his lungs. Collapses one lung and lodged next to his heart. But he would live for nearly half a day after that. Egg. So the sitting vice president shot Alexander Hamilton, the former Secretary of the Treasury. I'm trying to imagine. So Mnuchin was Trump's Secretary of the Treasury, and Kamala Harris. Okay, I can't even wrap my head around that, but that Burr took off. Oh, I just murdered a guy. So the vice president was on the lam. He took off running away. The whole thing is just like, you got to be kidding me. And there was an effort to arrest him, but they had that issue. Is it New Jersey or New York? And he never was arrested. He would come back and hang out in New York and New Jersey. And he never was arrested, would not be picked as a nominee for vice president, and then get involved in a conspiracy to remove Louisiana and make its own country, which of course Aaron Burr was, and would not get arrested for that. But this kind of ended dueling in the North. But not in the West and the South. They still fought lots of duels. And the Wild West of Tennessee was all kinds of duels. And I will get to another duel. Andrew Jackson. Another duel story. And you ever see the duels, just like in movies, we do the back-to-back, the quick draw Western duels. That never happened. No, that's not a thing. Oh, they might stand over the pistol and shoot each other, but that's for movies. Yeah. No, they rarely would ever stand. Yeah. Yeah, they had the pistol on. They're holding the pistol. But like gunfights in the Old West, they would hide behind walls. Try to bushwhack her. All right. So with that, that's our duel. So let's get to a couple things very quickly. Jefferson would win re-election, but we have to mention the 12th Amendment. To avoid the problems of 1796 and 1800, they said now the electors have 1 vote for president, 1 vote for vice president. To alleviate the disaster of 1800, but the problem with that was, now you have the electoral college from now on. And if they ever want to get to something different, like for example, a popular vote for president or some other change, it is still there. And it has not been touched for the most part since. And so the state assemblies still choose the electors. Today, the state assemblies allow for voters to choose the electors. And as the population has shifted and grown, we have a situation now where it's going to become, it seems to be very common. It's 2 times in the last 23 years that we've had a president who did not have the majority of the population want him to be president, did not win the popular vote. But it didn't matter. We still have the Electoral College. So this kind of ingrained it. So now we're kind of stuck with it unless they... There's some ways around the change in the Constitution, but I think the only way to get rid of it would be to change the Constitution. And of course, it does favor one party now, and so they will never change the Constitution, because remember, it's so hard to change the Constitution. And he would win. And remember the slave trade compromise, the Commerce Compromise? It said 20 years they couldn't touch it. Well, Jefferson, the slaveholder, remember, he knew slavery was wrong. He would sign a law that he proposed through his friends in Congress to ban, I put down the slave trade. I should have wrote this one more word, the international slave trade. They didn't ban the interstate slave trade. They banned the international slave trade. And they're hoping if you limit the number of slaves being brought in, aka kidnapped, enslaved people, brought into the United States, that number will dwindle and eventually slavery will die away on its own. Just like what was happening in northern states where there are very few slaveholders to resist it. So it eventually died away. Jefferson's thinking 50, maybe 70 years down the road, slavery will go away. Meaning it will not affect what person? Yeah, Jefferson. So Jefferson is doing this, hoping that he won't have to change what he's doing. We'll let the people down the road change. This is pragmatic. There's a lot of issues with pragmatic, isn't there? And this is a picture from an anti-slavery journal. Now, of course, everyone knew slavery was horrific. But a growing anti-slavery movement coincided with the Industrial Revolution in Britain. And here's from a British anti-slavery movement. What? Say something in French. No. You're you just repeated what?
No, I said English.
I'm gonna jump in the picture.
Right up there.
Huh? Not right now. And so this is what we call an ultra-tight packer. An ultra-tight packer. And what they would do is they would force the slaves in a seated position or crouched on their knees like this and chain them that way. So they could pack in twice or a third of many more people. Because a third of the people on this horrific middle passage would die on the rock. Sometimes as many as a half. Yeah, they've had them. Yeah, they didn't want them to die, but they assumed as they would go, they would die. The shock of this would be so horrific, it's unimaginable. Yeah. Yeah. Sharks we very happy. Yeah, it was, and then it was so awful, it's hard to even, we can't wrap our minds around it. We will come back to the middle passage, but this is showing this. So Jefferson thought we won't have the horrible middle passage anymore to deal with. Of course, they're going to find ways around this. And a few more things and we have to get there. But the problem was with Jefferson was this war, this commercial war was still going on. I meant to put on wars, I didn't, and I'm not changing. You're not going to make me change it. Anybody missing my pencil? I'm not a good person. I know. I don't like to brag. The Napoleonic Wars had devolved into stalemate. The French armies controlled most of Europe, but they couldn't cross the English Channel, as proven by the massive British defeat over a combined French and Spanish fleet at Trafalgar, 1805. You don't even know that, I'm just letting you know Trafalgar. But on land, nothing could stop the French army. They defeated the Prussians, the Austrians, the Russians. Here's the defeat of the Austrians at Austerlitz. So the point is stalemate. Britain and France were still there. France has the powerful army, can't get across the channel. So that means both of them tried to affect the enemy's businesses, merchants, their commerce. Just like the Quasi-War, the United States will be involved because U.S. merchants are trading, mostly with Britain, but also with France. The French would start this with 2 decrees issued by Napoleon, who's now made himself emperor. These 2 decrees are the Berlin and Milan decrees. That gives you an idea how vast his conquests had become. This is going to be known as the Continental Systems. Berlin was the capital of Prussia. Today, Berlin's the capital of what country? Sure, why? Who's been to Berlin? Yes? Berlin? No one? My nephew. I have a nephew living in Berlin. And the Milan decrees. Milan's in Italy. Guess who has a nephew in Milan? True story. Go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What club is this? This is all made up.
I know, it is.
And so, I actually do have a nephew in Milan. Actually, he's in Milan part-time, but his mother is a professor at a school just east of Rome, but in summers he's been in Milan.
Is there a history?
I'm very cosmopolitan.
Is there a history?
No, I agree. And what it was is everybody that France had conquered and France, they embargoed, which means they would not trade with Britain. This is the embargo. They embargoed. I don't know why I put embargo. I was not thinking. They embargoed everybody, Britain and no trade Britain, and everybody else who traded with Britain. So any merchant ship that went into Britain, they would not trade with. That included a significant number of American ships. Now, the continental system didn't work all that well. But still, this affected American merchants. Britain responded, they were already doing it, but basically, it's called the Orders in Council. A massive blockade of all Europe. Basically, all the European areas that France conquered. And these ships, there's going to be almost 1,000 British ships, frigates and cruisers, small ships, not the big battleship ships of the line, that would patrol off of French harbors like Marseille or Le Havre, Cherbourg, Bordeaux, and stopping any ships going in there. Basically saying we'll stop anything that can help the French war effort, which means any product. And that includes a lot of American-owned merchant ships. And they would also stop ships going into Britain too, because, well, these guys would be on these ships on the high seas for sometimes a year and a half, maybe even 2 years without ever touching land. Duty on these ships, the sailors would go through hell. British sailors would be recruited for a 20-year hitch. And could you imagine how difficult life would be in the Royal Navy? Remember the cat o' nine tails? That whip, it would be used, the whips, it would be used liberally for even the most minor offense. And can you imagine the food on board a ship in 1807 without refrigeration? Dry crackers, which are going to be filled with boll weevils, all kinds of bugs, which I know what you're thinking, protein, but also, yeah, they dip them in water and let the boll weevils kind of float to the top. The hard crackers they would eat, because they're dry, they would last, but if they got bugs in them, they had bugs. Or salt pork, which is, think about the saltiest thing. It has been described to me, salt pork, as, salt to preserve it. Imagine the saltiest thing you've ever eaten, including salt, and then add salt, and that's what you get. It is just salt, and every bite is just filled with salt because that preserves it. What are your fresh vegetables? What disease is going to be endemic on board ships? Yeah, you know what that's called? Vitamin C? Have you heard of scurvy? Yes. Scurvy, which is a horrible disease, a lack of vitamin C. So you need, for example, like citrus. That's why limes lasted longer, and lime juice they could preserve longer. And that's why on British ships at this time they would have lime juice. And they'd squirt it in their mouth. They give everybody a squirt of lime juice, and that'd be their vitamin C. You ever heard people in Britain called limeys? That's where it comes from.
scurvy. The bad thing about scurvy is it's a bunch of sores in your mouth. Can you imagine if you started getting scurvy and they squirt lime juice in your mouth, how bad that would hurt? Has anyone had like a cut and got like lime juice in a cut? What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Where's your pass? What's this one?
FCA.
What's FCA? Oh, of course, yeah. I knew that. Too many acronyms, I wasn't thinking. All right, so one of the things they would do is how they recruited sailors. Is anybody volunteering to go in the Royal Navy there for 20 years and get scurvy? Besides the obvious yahoo. Yo, do it. There's always somebody. Well, what they would do is how they recruited is they would go into the poorest sections of, let's say, London, or they'd even do it in, like if a British ship occasionally docked in, let's say, Philadelphia. They'd get whoever they could get. And they would go into a tavern. And they would proceed to buy somebody a lot of alcohol. And the way you would become a member of the Royal Navy, it was called taking the king's shilling. You took their money, you're in. There was no contract. You took it, you're in for 20 years. So they would go, let me get you a drink. Like a big stein full of, let's say, beer. They drop the shilling, the beer, and go, here. And as soon as you grabbed it, and you weren't paying, kind of not really paying attention after that, or because you had a few drinks, you're in. And if you resisted, you had a couple petty officers back there with clubs to beat you over the head. You wake up in the Royal Navy. So every time a ship, how's the pictures?
So hard.
Just okay?
For everybody else, yes, but everyone,
One, there we go.
how
I don't like my picture taken.
Hey, why? I was gonna say that.
Every time you get your picture taken, a little bit of your shadow goes. You lose a little bit of your shadow. That's what crazy was. I'm sitting with crazy was. So, where are we at? Oh, so every time a Royal Navy vessel would stop anywhere, every time a Royal Navy vessel would stop in port, guys would be deserting as fast as they could. They'd be jumping overboard and dog paddling to the shore. Remember, no one knew how to swim back then. Or they'd be climbing on ropes. They would desert as fast as they could go. That's part of the reason why they would never let them off the ships. So they couldn't find recruits. And so there's all these deserters, and there were thousands of deserters from the Royal Navy. Well, a lot of these deserters, they would take jobs on other ships, like, for example, American-owned merchant vessels. So every time this blockade would stop an American-owned merchant vessel, they would go look for deserters. And this was known as impressment. And they would impress deserters. They would also do this in bars. They go running through the bars in like seedy areas of town near the harbors and say, we're looking for deserters. And they would line them up here. And they would say, okay, you are a deserter from the Royal Navy. And they rough them up, drag them on board the ship, and now you have been impressed into the Royal Navy. Tell me what a deserter looks like. Do they look, yeah, they look, you're a deserter. Do they look different than the other sailors? So what were they doing? Yeah, they're kidnapping people. What? Science. Yeah, they would just kidnap people. Yeah, you're the fittest looking sailors. Now, they started kidnapping sailors for 20 years of hell in the Royal Navy. Do I have anybody want to take a job on a U.S. merchant ship? I'm looking for volunteers now. Pays good, besides obviously you. So this destroyed the U.S. merchant fleet. Sailors said, to hell with it, I'm not going. They couldn't trade. Impressment really hurt merchants. Jefferson, they begged him to do it as the United States economy, which was doing pretty well. There was more commerce, more trade in 1804, 1805. Jefferson kind of got the credit, began to fall apart by 1807. Here's a very vivid cartoon of Jefferson representing the United States losing money. Oh my God. This was a pretty common thing of throwing up money. And what's causing it? Here's the Britain, and this is supposed to be the Orders in Council. And I don't know what he's doing, but that's Orders in Council. And that's Napoleon.
But remember I told you they sent a prairie dog back, Lewis and Clark, and that became a big deal. So you notice he's the prairie dog. Even though I don't know what prairie dog that's supposed to be. Of course, nobody looks pleasant when they throw up, especially corns. Jefferson, who knew the United States could not go to war, we had to just pay off the Barbary pirates 2 years earlier. In 1807, his allies proposed the Embargo Act. And the Embargo Act was no trade with everybody. We won't trade with anybody, and that will force Britain and France, but especially Britain, to give up their blockade. We won't trade with them. Britain was starting to use a crop for the new Industrial Revolution that was in the United States. The Industrial Revolution began in textiles. What crop, literally overnight, was becoming popular by Jefferson's turn? Cotton. We're coming to that, yeah? But there would be a small amount of trade, but if you got a special license issued from the executive branch, aka Jefferson. So this is a cartoon, and it's a Federalist cartoon, and it's showing all these people coming in to beg for a license, and they're begging Jefferson. And the biggest trading partner of the United States was Britain. So an embargo of trade meant really we're not trading with Britain. Most of our trade was with Britain. So here's Jefferson, and they're talking about this, how we trade, go through everything. A lot of philosophical. They really mocked him for being the philosopher, and he really was just a pragmatic, duplicitous politician, as they saw it. And so they're all begging. And what kind of people would the administration give licenses to? What kind of businesses? What party? Republicans. Anybody who criticized Jefferson and the administration did not get a license. At least that's what the Federalists thought. And look who's upset about it. Even this poor little dog is upset. And by the way, do you see what the dog is saying in complete anger? Bow wow. Even back in 1807, dogs said bow wow. But this also claims who's behind the whole thing. You see Napoleon? And they draw Napoleon as being short. That was British propaganda. Napoleon was not unusually short. He was 7'2". And he had the wingspan of a 9-foot tall guy. Yeah, and that was a little bit shorter than average, but not unusually short. 5'6", 5'7", it depends. We just know from his clothes. But the British said he was short, and that's the mock him. And one problem, when you die, you shrink. We should go. Want to go see Napoleon's tomb?
Yeah.
We're going to Paris.
They made it so that wherever you're standing, you're on a ground, you can't look at it.
Yeah, because it's on the.
Yeah, you got to bow your head to them where you're looking.
Have you been there?
No, I just saw it.
You should go. It's at the French military academy. It's really cool. I'll tell you, and I have a story when we get to World War I about me at the French military academy. But this reminded people, what was the law that banned free speech? It was this time against Republicans back in the other wars. What was it? It was 3 laws actually, but we dubbed it as the Blank and Blank Act.
Something in sedition.
Let's say it again.
Something in sedition.
Something in sedition. What's another term for somebody who's not a citizen? Alien and Sedition Act. This Federalist said, you complain about the Alien and Sedition Act, and you're doing the same thing. This is just like the Sedition Act, which in a way it was. What happened? I'm using the economy, even though remember this is pre-capitalism. What do you suppose happened to the economy of the United States? Because, yeah, it was a disaster. And Jefferson's going to be blamed. Now, Jefferson will claim in 1808, I don't want to be president anymore. I want to go back to Monticello. No, he actually privately told people he wanted to be president again. He kind of liked it. But he couldn't run again. He couldn't run again. And so in 1808, his Secretary of State, and remember, Jefferson was the Secretary of State. Do you see a trend here? From Virginia, oh, almost forgot something. So, the United States employed to enforce this. People know this. This is one of these things that's come through history and people forget. Massive 2 to 3 ton snapping turtles that would roam the shores, grabbing anybody who tried to trade. Now, of course, what do you call the snapping turtles? An old grab me. Grab them. And this shows an old grab me, and you see the license? And he doesn't have a license, and he's trying to trade. This is super fine. It's whiskey. And you notice the Union Jack to a British ship. And he said, didn't it? Howie Nixon. Oh, this cursed old grab me. Yeah, these massive snapping turtles. God, we should have them. It's so cool. Huh? Oh, in the hallways? Okay, everyone look. Everyone look. See the name? Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you catch it? Oh, grab me. Embargo backwards. Embargo backwards. I know it's one of those that, oh, and then once you see it, yeah. So that's how they attacked him. I got some bad news for you. They really didn't use snapping turtles. Snapping turtles know no loyalty. Do not trust snapping turtles. Put that on your, write that down. So Madison, his Secretary of State, would run for president as a Republican, and he would win. But you'll notice the Federalist Party is now more and more just becoming a party of New England. The Republican Party is definitely becoming the dominant majority party, but still, this is electoral college. There's no popular vote for president. And the first thing the Republicans did once Madison's in office, they decapitated the "oh, grab me." Boy, that is one gruesome picture. But here's the problem with this. The snapping turtle has his ear. He cut the head off. But if a snapping turtle grabs you and you cut the head off, it actually grips harder. And it's more difficult to get off.
This is like another war.
Has anyone ever been around a snapping turtle? Just only a couple of us? They couldn't handle it. The point is, the problem still exists. That's a pretty good cartoon. Oh, little snapping turtle. Snapping turtles don't look like that. They got a snout and they're ugly.
They're pretty cool.
Huh?
They're pretty cool looking.
They are pretty cool. So the Madison's administration then would be tainted by this entire time by this war. And that's Madison's wife, Dolly Madison. And much like Abigail Adams, an important influence on his life, she was incredibly intelligent, like Abigail Adams, probably smarter than her spouse. But remember, there's also a time of women who had more rights in 1800 than they are going to have in like 30 years, but still limited authority. But his whole thing would be this darn commercial war. And so, in 1809, got rid of the Embargo Act, they passed the Non-Intercourse Act. That means intercourse in this context means trade. 1809. They won't trade with any belligerent. Belligerent's anybody at war. But you see the problem with that? Who's at war? The people they want to trade with. So this one didn't work at all. So naturally, they went to everybody's favorite Macon's Bill, number 2. Macon's Bill number 2. Nobody liked Macon's Bill number 1. This makes me mad thinking about it. Macon's Bill number 2. And this is 1810. And this said, okay, who will respect our neutrality? Who respects our neutrality? Whomever it's Britain or France, whichever one does, we'll trade with them. So whoever gets rid of the blockade or the Orders in Council. And the British blockade was the one that affected most Americans. And the French knew it. It was the blockade. So the new French foreign minister, Talleyrand, had gotten out of favor. And Cadora, his first name is gone. But Cadora was the new French foreign minister. He's a French foreign minister. He sent a letter to the United States, basically to President Madison, saying, we will lessen the Berlin and Milan Decree. That's my thumbs up. You like the special effects I use? Isn't that amazing? Have you ever seen anything like that? I drew that myself in my backyard shop. I'm not sure how that works in a backyard shop. So the U.S. would embargo, they embargoed Britain. I don't know why I put embargoes, I meant to put embargo Britain. Because they believed it. By the way, what were the French doing? The French were lying. The French were not going to change this. Ironically, Britain was starting to get hurt by their merchants by the lack of cotton. And they were seriously considering getting rid of the blockade. But think about it, if Britain and France at war, and the United States now embargoes just Britain, isn't that like we just entered the war on the side of the French? And so, while this is going on, remember I mentioned the Battle of Greenville, or the Treaty of Greenville, the Battle of Fallen Timbers? That those Northwest Indian Wars were going on. They were not, the tribes that lived there were promised after Fallen Timbers all of the Northwest, except for the Ohio, forever. But this is the Battle of Fallen Timbers. But there was a series of unequal treaties that came out of this. That basically that land was taken away. How much time do we got? Unequal treaties. Do I have enough time to show this video? How long do we have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right, we don't have time. Everybody,
Yeah.
please put down, remind me to, I'm going to show you a video on Friday. Let's write down one more thing. So we're coming to the most important battle, maybe the most important battle in American history, the Battle of Tippecanoe. November 7th, 1811, and one of the reasons why people don't remember it as much is because of the kind of quasi-comical sounding name, Tippecanoe. But this will have such long-lasting impact, it affects us to this very day. So we'll stop it right there, and that's what we'll pick up. By the way, this Tecumseh and his brother, anybody want to try to pronounce that? You want me to pronounce it for you?
Yes.
I'll pronounce it like a citizen of the United States. The Prophet. Yeah. They call him the... You notice he has one eye? There are a lot of one-eyed American Indians. Anyone know why? Because he's they play bow and arrow. They would, without the arrow tip, but they would shoot bow and arrows at each other to play as little kids. What?
Yeah. Back side of that. Which I might do.
Oh, so you have to read pages 505 to 537, and that chart goes along with it.
That's like about LS.
Yeah, with transcendentalism and all, and then the map on the back of the map. Okay. And the other ones, just review this for the test on.
And then, is there anything else?
Oh, everybody! Thank you for reminding me. If you were gone on Monday, I collected that worksheet on Thomas Jefferson from the video on Thursday. If you have it, please give it to me. The video on Thursday we watched. If you have it, so that, and then that's with the video notes. We took the quiz on chapter 7. You got it.
Okay.
If you have the Thomas Jefferson, please give it to me. We watch that on Thursday. Huh? It is.
I worded that really bad. I meant the philosophy stuff.
Goodbye, everybody. Nice job. Oh, people didn't notice my Jefferson equals S. Have a good day. Apple cider. I can't. And this is gonna be 90% of your grade.
Okay, good.
I could probably get one even
Good.
That's a lot.
That came from the school board. They said, I want to. That is probably 50.
Kate, does it look better? Kate, does it look better? No, does it look better? Mr. Parker, you're really Kate.
Yeah, go get a half sheet of paper.
Okay,
Oh, I didn't know my name. That's why.
It's people like you what cause discontent. Okay, here we go.
Did you not? Did you actually? Yes. You were literally whining 2.5 minutes ago about I didn't get a single one of these right. Oh my god.
Form A coherent sentences.
Both got a 10%. Good job.
You know what? 10% is better than 0. I didn't think it. That was
Hey,
okay.
Wednesday in the Valley for those who were not here yesterday. For those who were not here. Just found.
I was hoping I could.
Cold outside?
I was cold, yeah, I got my sweatshirt, so,
And of course now the sun is coming out.
right, yeah.
At least it wasn't raining. Yeah, everyone else take the quiz, grab a half sheet of paper. And then leave my presence on the hallway. I gotta kick you out again. So many times. Trouble. You have to get it. Oh, we didn't finish the dueling story, did we? Have to finish dueling. I'm always waiting.
Yeah.
Quiz. If you were gone yesterday, got to take the quiz, got to get it done.
You said there's homework.
Yeah. Why don't you feel well? I'm sorry you feel bad. Don't feel bad. Does that help? You have to review this and the test is on Wednesday. And then you have to read chapter. Wow. Stop it after. Yeah.
I'm not really seeing you.
Yes.
Like, cooking something. You gotta do.
Quiz. You have to take that quiz. Half sheet of paper. And you missed duel. We're talking about duels. All right. So I'm going to hand out. We got a little bit of homework. Everything's relative. We're going to look at some currency here in a sec. What? You never know what process stuff. Oh, the tastes good, right? Oh, I have stacks of stuff.
I got a bunch of these tables, but with no lid.
Yeah, I did.
All right, thank you.
Actually, yeah. Shut up.
Foxford,
Literally.
I'll be really mad.
I'm done.
Look that one.
I wonder. All right, first thing is first. First thing. So, on River Island, something for us all to look at. We talked about Rhode Island. Remember Rhode Island talked about how they would print a lot of currency? And do you remember talking before Shays' Rebellion, Rhode Island printing currency, they wanted inflation. Remember inflation, deflation? And well, as it turned out, he had a piece of Rhode Island currency from 1786. And of course, they put down colonial currency, even though it's not the colonies anymore. And I'm blaming you. No, it's this nice little, it's really cool. It's, I know they have this picture from the 19th century.
They had to make it all gaudy.
Yeah, you know, but colonial currency, but it's actually from the Confederation era. And this is Rhode Island, 1786. And then on the back, it talks about, 6 shillings. This is just whatever paper currency. And I was really cool he brought that in. And what were you saying about Rhode Island currency again? What were you saying about Rhode Island currency from this era?
Oh, I can't remember what paper it was on, but it's real because the ink, it rusts over time. And if you look at it, it's kind of brownish. So that's it. Don't really know.
Is this, and what are you saying about the amount of how easy this was to find?
It was pretty hard to find.
No, but compared to other
Oh,
states.
this is way easier to find in other states.
Yeah, because remember we talked about they printed a lot more. So it makes sense there'd be more. And so we got to do 2 things. Does everyone come up? I mean, I think it's really cool. So everyone come up and take a look at this, please. And while you're up here, you get to grab something from 2 stacks. So we'll kind of come up, take a look. It's really neat. So go ahead and then grab this too. While you're doing that, I filmed this, so we're shutting off the camera now.
Funny how I weigh more than you, even though you're 6'3".
I think
Flash hats.
See who cares? See?
I had to go through, I did the same thing.
Yeah, no one had.
I mean, he's right.
That's really cool.